We're back. Sorry about the technical difficulty.
Like stream's dead. What
Technical difficulty. Is that what you call it?
You know what, Coach? It's called managing problems. What CEOs do all the time.
Oh man, I'm sorry. No, but it could have happened to anybody, and I'm sure it's happened to all of us at one point or another. But it was fucking funny, man.
Well, it would happen to me anyhow. But I'm
very
sorry.
generous of you.
No, it's happened to everybody. That's why it's so fucking funny, you know? Because see, the other times when it happened to me, I was like sweating like a motherfucker. But it happened to you, Todd. So now you're sweating.
Wait, so it happened to you, Coach?
What's his major problem, mate?
Sure, of course. Everybody's fucked up a stream, man. Relax.
Yeah,
it's no
that happens. So where do we go off? Sorry about that, guys.
Where were
now I've lost our place, though. Yeah.
I think colonials. I agree with the chat, mate. It's the fucking colonials, isn't it?
Well, I mean, look, Coach. I mean, it's kind of like, what better way to get memorable than do something horribly disastrous?
It really does happen to everybody, though, dude. It really does.
You're going to turn into Kraut, mate, if you're not careful.
Oh, no, I'm not that bad. Actually, speaking of him, his going after the alt-right was a big disaster.
Oh, that was fucking stupid as fuck. Fucking retard.
Well, that's it's so evident.
Hang on. We
a lot of what we've been talking about.
On this conversation, on this part of the conversation, where's Andy? Where's he at?
He's on. His mic's just muted.
He's on.
Are you there, Andy?
I'm just grabbing a drink.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Good.
I'm alive. Don't worry, I didn't die.
No, actually, I'm going to break up some lines. So you guys go. Where are you talking about Kraut? Kraut?
Well, you guys were just talking about earlier how with the alt-right, the skeptics are going after them and getting like whooped. And the classic example of that is Kraut and T. He didn't even have his information together and got totally whooped. And that's part of the problem. But to be honest, what we're seeing here with the skeptic community is the fact that when they were attacking the Christians online, A, there weren't that many, and B, they weren't the most well-educated. And so they sort of created this, they sort of felt better than they were. And when they fight people that are more invested and know their stuff better, like the alt-right, it's like they get whooped.
Yeah, but what's the problem with someone debating someone on religion?
You just have to know what you're talking about. And I think, like I said a while ago now, is that this seemed, I think, to many people, maybe like Kraut, I don't know. But this was the next logical step of that. The alt-right were the next sort of enemy. And I don't think the alt-right, and I think Braving talked about this, is that they're not the enemy the way that they've been portrayed or that they're getting portrayed in that.
Aiden, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
I just had a little insight that I wanted to float by you.
Absolutely.
Which is as follows: that the skeptics were fighting ideology, religious ideology that was perhaps irrational or completely irrational, as the case may be, feminism, which is irrational, as we would all agree, and SJWism in general, which is irrational, as again we could all agree. And I think that the skeptics thought, who else is irrational? What other irrational ideology can we go after? And they focused on the alt-right thinking, perhaps not in an articulated sense, that the alt-right were a bunch of ideologues. And I think that they stepped into a quagmire not realizing that the facts were on the alt-right's side, the alt-right or the hard right, however you want to define it. Setting aside the whole ethno-state shit. But in the sense that everybody on the hard right, conservative, reactionary, whatever you want to call them, the facts were on their side, and it wasn't an irrational ideology, but quite the contrary, a rational arrival at certain difficult and unpleasant conclusions, perhaps, but that were inevitable based on the data. Would this make any sense to you?
Yeah. Okay, but like I said before, on stream part 1, how a lot of alt-right people were a crazy extreme beyond what I guess what we're talking about here. So a lot of skeptics go after that extreme. It's like a lot of skeptics go after, people on the left, but we'd all agree that it's mainly the extreme left. You know what I mean?
The ideologue left.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say that like the skeptics bashing the alt-right or debunking or whatever are going for more of the extreme, and I think there's a misunderstanding because like you say alt-right and it feels now like after hearing what everyone has had to say that there's a way broader brush than is being presented to, I'd say, most people. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
You mean a broader spectrum of opinion?
Spectrum, yeah, of types of people within. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people that will use the word liberal as a bad word, but when they're meaning an extreme leftist, right? Because there's obviously some rational liberals out there who are willing to have an open discussion. Obviously, there's some things I would disagree or agree with them, but I think there's a misunderstanding at the target because like alt-right, there's so many things to go through that people are only focusing on the extreme aspects of it. You know what I mean?
What's easier cognitively? Basically, our brains are designed to put people into groups, into catalogs, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just easier for us to do that kind of work. It reduces mental load, right? So it makes sense why we do this, but if we're trying to be honest and we're trying to engage in these complex discussions in a political or semi-political environment on the internet, I just find it disingenuous when, and actually Sargon has even talked about the incredible amount of diversity, if you want to call it that, in political opinions across the alt-right. So that's just what I want to see more of, is less of the vitriol and the just you're a Nazi and therefore whatever, you deserve to be deplatformed, you deserve to be shut up, and more of just because I think that if we actually discussed some of these issues all together, which is why I love being in streams like this, then we would find that there's far more common ground than there is uncommon ground.
100%. Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's why I'm never close to going on someone who I may have had disagreements or might not see eye to eye, because the term alt-right, before this stream, I sort of had that lens on of the more extremists, right? But obviously, from what you're all saying right now, and I'm sure you could school me on a lot of fucking topics on this, but I'd agree with a lot of what you guys have to say. But again, I came in here with a lens of what I perceived alt-right as, so I could see the misunderstanding, because like no one here, again, like you were saying, Braving, about the word ethno-state has sort of blown up into this. People are picturing us deporting all the black people and keeping only white people and Asian, like everyone. It's just a white, you know what I mean? I think that's what a lot of people do picture when we're talking about alt-right.
Yeah, definitely. There definitely is a mental image of that, and I do think it is perpetuated by some of the spurgier types of people who honestly think that but like the genuine like LARPing neo-Nazi type of people who think that one day we're gonna have a race war and we're gonna kill everyone who isn't white and all this stuff. It's like, okay, I'm sure there's a small number of people who sincerely believe that, and they're idiots, and I don't agree with them. But at the same time, you also have to keep in mind that a lot of this is humor. Like I will make Nazi jokes. I will make jokes about throwing people in a gas chamber and things like that because I think it's funny. But there's there's a phenomenon that I've noticed where people seem to be willing to take something as a joke if it's a joke being made by someone they agree with. But the second it's someone they don't agree with, oh well, that person must have been 100% serious and totally not being ironic at all.
Dankula.
Yeah, like Dankula is a great example of this, or Sargon saying the "I wouldn't even rape you" thing. Feminists were very keen to take the "I wouldn't even rape you" thing and claim that Sargon was actually threatening people with rape, when this is very obviously it's a rhetorical device. It's a joke that he's using to show how histrionic feminists are. You know, this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about, where people who agree with Sargon, even on, you know, even someone like myself who agrees with him on some things but not a lot of things, people who agree with him very easily understood that this was a joke and that it was not at all a serious threat of rape or sexual assault. And people who disagree with him were happy to interpret it in the most negative, most uncharitable way possible. So there's that as well.
Yeah, the bias of your fans, basically, right? I'd say, yeah, but yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I just think people are always, okay, people who are in your out group, people who don't agree with you, they're going to inherently be looking for things that confirm their own biases, and part of that means looking for things that you say that will confirm their own biases about you. I just sent this video to somebody who messaged me on Twitter yesterday, which is a bit from John Mulaney, the comedian, which is, he said, I think I don't believe in the death penalty, and his friend responds by saying, oh, so you're telling me that if you saw Hitler walking down the street, you wouldn't kill him? That's not what I was telling you. But the whole idea is that people will always take things that you say to an insane conclusion because they want to, if they already dislike you for some reason, or they think they disagree with you. It doesn't matter if they really do or not, but they think they disagree with you. They're going to try to confirm their own pre-established beliefs. We do this to preserve our own ego, essentially, and avoid cognitive dissonance.
Well, be that as it may, as to the reasons why, in a practical sense as to what's going on right now, it seems to me that the skeptics, the skeptic community, okay, I've become extremely disappointed in the skeptic community because I'm realizing that they're a lot less clever and a lot less worthy of attention than I had realized, because they have a very big audience, and that creates inevitably a gravitational pull. And you think, ooh, these guys must be big brains. But they're not. And the fact that they have been so broad brushing the whole alt-right thing and flinging that accusation helter-skelter at people, and stupidly thinking that they could win without realizing that a lot of the people on the alt-right, the hard right, the reactionary right, whatever you want to call it, they have the facts on their side. It's the winning side, because the facts, the truth is on their side, whether you like it or not. But there are certain things going on right now that will inevitably, that are leading to a catastrophe in the Western democracies that we want to avoid. And so it's sort of like, in my own case, it pisses me off, because it seems as if they're flinging shit at precisely the people whom should be listened to most carefully, because a lot of the people on the, let's call them dissident right, not GOPers, you know, not corporate conservatives, but rather true conservatives who are not conservatives knee-jerk, but rather after a long evolution and have arrived at this political position based on facts, available facts, and facts as they currently are. And instead of engaging with them, they fling shit at them, okay? And fling shit at me.
But I would phrase it differently, Coach Red Pill. I would phrase it a little bit differently, where you say the facts are on the side of the right. You cannot acquire the conservative point of view with only the facts. So I agree with you that that people who make statements about differences on race and IQ, and people who are stating that the reproductive rate of liberals is not sufficient to sustain their existence over 1,000 years, the facts are on their side in the sense that they are right about these. But the facts alone do not condemn the view of conservatism and do not approve the alt-right view as being true. The alt-right stems as a reaction to these facts that states, we don't want this to happen. We have values A, B, C that says we shouldn't go there, we should go elsewhere. And so the alt-right is not just facts, and it's not just facts that will lead you to these conservative beliefs. It's a set of preferences about these facts.
Mm-hmm. It's completely true. It's actually also true that we find that conservatism in general is a reactionary ideology. It is in reaction to a stimulus. So, of course, you need some sort of data or some sort of stimuli to create conservative values, because without which there would be no rationale for it, something to react against. And it's why there was this horrible study I was looking at the other day that said, ask conservatives to put themselves in a position if they were Superman, essentially, which is a terrible study because you can't ask participants to do that kind of shit. And then all of a sudden, they had less conservative views if they believed that they had superpowers and could prevent any harm from befalling their kin. It's a very bad study, very dumb study. But of course, conservatism is in of itself a reaction to data, or reaction to elements within society. That will always be true, as
also,
generally speaking.
On the same line that I said to Coach Red Pill, I would also be critical on the same attitude on the left, which comes from people like Richard Dawkins, who claimed, okay, we are atheists, we care about the facts, but then claimed more than this. Richard Dawkins, for example, recently in a text, in a blog post, he states that the fact that young embryos that are like 3 months old do not feel suffering is a good argument for abortion. And the problem is there, okay, you have the fact that the embryo is not suffering, Richard, but that's not enough. There are people who just value life. They value what this embryo could become. And so the conservative response is, oh yeah, the embryo is not feeling something. Maybe you're right on that. Maybe you're wrong. But that doesn't matter. We don't kill people who are in their sleep just because they cannot feel the pain. And so that's an attitude that I would reproach on any side. The facts themselves, they don't suffice. We have values, and we should start a societal discussion on these values without calling each other liars and without saying, we've debunked your facts. And just recognize that we have facts. These are the things we can agree on. And then there are values. These are the things we can debate.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, another good example of this is the whole replacement migration issue, where you have demographic projections showing that white Americans will be a minority, and non-Hispanic white Americans will be a minority in the United States by the early 2040s. Now, this is generally a fact that almost everybody accepts, both on the left and the right. But the fact alone doesn't lead anyone to any particular conclusion. You know, right-wingers tend to look at that and say, okay, that's probably a bad thing. We don't want that to happen. Left-wingers will tend to look at that and say, great, more elections for us. Fuck white people. So, you know, it really goes to show what JF is saying, that the fact by itself doesn't necessarily put you in any particular conclusion or any particular ideological position.
You know, I think one thing that is interesting to point out is how, well, I think we all agree that the alt-right, the new right, whatever we want to call it, has a series of facts that are quite interesting. And of course, the real difference is how you interpret them. But I think one of the wrong lessons that was derived from the earlier the early skeptic community was when it came to religion. And I think part of it is their understanding of the distinction between different kinds of facts. So, for instance, I would argue that if you look at the philosophical, metaphysical arguments, those facts lead very strongly, at least, to some form of deism. I know Marushin can talk to that, but
I was.
And so what'll happen is they're not thinking at that level. So they think that, okay, there's these kinds of empirical facts, and we'll use those. Okay, well, fine, that works up to a certain level, but the level where these other facts are more akin to mathematical facts, logical facts, they also claim to be very logical and rational, but then when you point out those facts, they react the same way. And I think we could have predicted their behavior to the
I released the video, actually.
Yeah, you could predict their behavior on the alt-right facts based on their reaction to the Christian or philosophical facts based on various arguments that we've seen from William Lane Craig and others.
May I bring up one point?
Go ahead.
Yeah, and this is like sort of just on the topic in general. So when we were talking earlier about how I was explaining how alt-right, a lot of people have tarnished the name and blah, blah, blah. That's why a lot of skeptics may look at alt-right as a negative group of people, right? And then you guys are saying, well, hashtag not all, basically, right? Which I agree with, like fully. I'm totally on your side. But then wouldn't it be fair to say not all skeptics? Because I feel when we're saying skeptic,
absolutely,
because sort of like the vibe I'm getting is that the skeptic community, which, you know, I do those types of videos, therefore I'm automatically placed in there, I suppose. It feels as if that broad brush is painting a lot of people as what you guys are saying.
I think Raven,
Andy,
that
I get called a skeptic. So like it's, you know, you can only, there's not so much you can do about this. Like, because I've done videos, I've done very little, I've done almost no videos about, I think I did a video about the Women's March. And so then it was like even Ape asked me, so you do a bunch of videos about feminism. And it's like, I think I did one. So, but you get put into these boxes by people, which is, it happens on every side. And that's why I think what I find so interesting about this, though, is what Praise of Folly also brought up, I think, in some level, is that it's this, and everyone has brought up, really, is that it's this intense moral argument that we need to get to. We need to move beyond the facts and be like, facts exist, facts are real, data exists, and move into, we have to talk about this philosophically. What people label you as is always going to happen, and I agree 100%. It's hashtag not all skeptics. People like yourself or Bearing, I don't see any issue with that at all.
Well,
you know?
well,
right.
I totally understand
even,
that, but there are people who were messaging me who brought up that point. That's why I brought it up, and I know obviously not all skeptics, but then I feel as if just using that term, we're not specifying on the specific people who we should pull out or you guys should pull out to have debates against. You know what I mean? It sort of feels like you're just going skeptic. Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of impractical to do that. There's so many of them. It's just impractical. We might as well decide a general kind of list of people. We can look at we can take the kind of mean of the group, and then we will counter that. Obviously, there'll be exceptions, and they'll just say, "Well, I don't believe that," and then you pretty much sorted. I don't really see why it's necessary to make an endless list.
Or we can even just go by subtype, like, you know, I guess character traits or traits of the content. Like I was saying earlier that, you know, if somebody isn't claiming to be like some kind of intellectual heavyweight or something like that, or if they have something to back them up, but they want to disagree and they want to represent someone's position honestly and have an honest discussion about it, then I'm fine with that. You know, it's not just enough that someone disagrees with me for me to dislike them. It's more how they go about disagreeing with me. Like, for instance, to invoke Malfi Buddha for another example again. He and I disagree on quite a lot of things, but I'm always willing to talk to him, and I think he's a good guy because he is willing to entertain the conversation honestly, and that's what I think is really important. Nobody's ever going to agree on every little thing, but if you're, you know, the line that people cross with me is if they won't engage the conversation at all, or if they do and they're dishonest about it, or they have hang-ups about it and they let their own personal agenda get in the way of having an honest conversation.
You know, there is a point that you brought up, Braving Ruin and JF, and I think this gets to the root of some of the problem here. Is, for instance, you mentioned someone starting out of a CAD will accept the data that the new right brings to the table, but then they'll differ on how to interpret it. And I think this is where, as a whole, the skeptic communities fail, because when you can have two ways of looking at the data, but how do you then, if both your worldviews can account for the data, how do you then determine which is the true worldview? You have to appeal to something more than just the data. Things like internal consistency.
That's where the argument should be happening.
Yeah,
it should be happening on, we agree that these data exist, we agree on the facts, because when it comes to conversations of politics on this level, I'm sorry, but there is some level where it is going to become philosophy. It's going to become opinion over. Now, when you understand the facts on the basic level, you have to have that established. And once it's established, then you can have a complex conversation. Where I see the trouble arising is in the inability to accept facts first.
Oh yeah. The left has always had that problem. I mean, you know, when the left keeps on arguing that black people are disproportionately imprisoned because of, you know, my white racism, my institutional racism, you can't have a meaningful conversation about crime in this country.
No.
And so once you agree to a certain set of facts, but you see, the skeptic community has a hard time moving beyond just the facts, because even if they accept the facts, like some of the more intelligent and well-read ones do, they don't know where the next step is in the argument. So they kind of end up spinning their wheels. Okay, where do we go next? Well, the next step would be these higher metaphysical issues to sort of adjudicate which interpretation of the facts is the most reasonable.
Well, there's something else going on, it seems to me, that at this point, insofar as the left-right divide is concerned, it's become an issue of optics at this stage, okay? I mean, forget about the philosophical issues, because, like, for instance, I saw a Hunter Avallone video where he was out in some protest, some Antifa protest, right? And there was some girl wearing the sweatshirt that said, this machine is built for killing fascists, right? Some shit like that, right? So he goes up to her and starts asking her about it, you know, and she's like, oh, well, I wouldn't kill anybody, but, you know, I mean, okay, fine. And then finally he asks her the key question. So could you please define what fascism is? And she couldn't, you know, she had no fucking idea, you know.
Imagine my shock.
Imagine my shock.
Imagine my shock.
Guys, pro tip, guys, it's not as bad as you think it is.
Yeah, like join me, Luke, and together we will rule the galaxy as father and son. Yeah, I know. But my point.
Yeah, fucking. I'll tell you, like ContraPoint's video on fascism was fucking awful.
What? ContraPoints thinks that fascism is so fucking awful, but it's got great fashion sense. Is that what you said?
Well, it does. It does.
Well,
like let's not dispute Hugo Boss here, all right? But
yeah, let's talk about Hugo Boss.
Her definition was pretty shit.
You can't argue with aesthetics. You really can't argue with aesthetics.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Oh no,
yeah.
we're not, guys. We're not helping.
So sexy in jack boots, you know. She really would, you know. But okay, fucking around aside. Look, the issue is, at this stage, it's optics, where it's like the alt-right and fascists, and that's that. And the thing is, see, I think we all agree that we want to be convincing people of our ideas. So we have to, first of all, we have to come up with a better name than alt-right, because alt-right has become completely tarnished. It has to be.
They'll tarnish any other name. Coach, you know this. Any name that we came up with, they'll just tarnish the next one.
It really doesn't matter, yeah. Like at this point, it's more about presenting ideas. You know, like I mean, here's a good example of this: is that Nick J. Fuentes guy who was on Lauren Southern's stream the other day.
Yeah,
I'm a funny guy. The guy has the perfect shirt. The guy has the Christmas T-shirt.
Oh yeah,
to represent his views. He has the perfect T-shirt for his political views.
What?
You can't go wrong with the wholesome Christmas sweater, okay? But, okay. So what I was gonna say is that his whole bag is the whole America First thing, the whole like Trumpism kind of thing, and he he agrees. He's kind of like me, where he agrees with the quote unquote alt-right on a lot of things. He agrees on what he thinks a country should be, what a nation should be. But he wants to present it in this sort of patriotic kind of way, the way Trump did during his campaign, which was obviously very good optics and very successful. You know, Trump won. We can see that he drew in a lot of people with his rhetoric without having to, be a literal jackbooted fascist marching down the street. So my point here is that there's a time for good optics and a time for not really caring. Distributist mentioned to me the other day that Nick ruined the optics of the Lauren Southern stream. He ruined the optics of the right wing side. But the thing about that is,
to be fair, because he was far too abrasive.
He ruined everyone else.
Okay, but can I let me finish my point.
But he made us look shit in the process.
Let him finish.
Well, here's the thing: is that was not a serious conversation that was happening. That was not a discussion being had in good faith. You had ContraPoints and Theron Meyer and Destiny there, for Christ's sake. That was not a good faith discussion. You know, it's not a situation where you really need to care all that much about being serious, because I mean, you're not having a formal debate about anything. You're not having a serious good faith discussion. It's a bunch of people screaming at each other. And to be honest, I think, and of course I'm biased because I like Nick's show and I tend to agree with him on a lot of things. So of course I'm going to be biased. But in my own opinion, I think a guy wearing a Christmas sweater making a few jokes here and there is much more optically sound than a transgender person screaming about how they're not afraid of you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just if I had to weigh the optics.
Wait. Here's the question. What's funnier?
Electroshocking through the fucking mic. I mean, come on.
No, like, what's funnier, transgender shouting or me blowing, 200, 300 people watching my stream?
I'd go with the transgender. That was funnier.
No, I know. I'm just trying to lighten the moment here, but yeah, that was, I think, a really, well, it was a complete disaster of a stream. The one that Lauren Southern had. It was interesting because it really showed the divide.
No. Sorry to interrupt. The real disaster of a stream was, and let's talk about it real quick because I'm dying to talk about it. Is the whole red pill black Blaire White situation?
Oh, that was fucking funny.
Yeah, I didn't even watch it.
Ages.
I didn't even watch it. I had to get second. I did because I heard about it and I was like, well, that sounds like something I don't want to watch.
Oh no!
That was fucking bullshit.
That was funny as fuck.
The fact that he fucking
completely lost control of his own show.
Oh yeah,
guys,
just over and over. But he, she interviewed or had a debate with the wrong person. It should have been Triologic, Dave, or me, the ones who actually made the videos about her and was the whole topic of conversation. I'm literally shouting at the TV.
Harmful opinions. Yeah.
Oh, and I was like texting fucking or DMing Blaire, and I was like, just say this. Like, I was like, I know what she's saying here, and I know the lie, but she picked Blaire, who was on a stream about the situation for like 45 minutes and bashed Candace. Candace was upset, so then had her on Ruben because she's upset.
It's because Candace is trying to avoid everybody who actually has. It's not like Blaire did, because Blaire kept, apparently, I'm getting my information secondhand from Hard Bastard, so excuse me, but apparently Blaire kept bringing up her actual quotes that she made, or actual quotes and actual citations, and she was like, no, and just lying through her teeth. But they couldn't bring on, Ruben didn't want to bring on someone like you, Andy, or someone like Tree, because those are the main people that were actually going against her and had the real hard data. And it was like, oh, we'll have a conversation, and I get it. But come on.
I always talk about this, is that when you are wrong, and by this point, Red Pill Black knew that she's wrong. Candace Owen knew that she was wrong, in the wrong, and what she should have done is, if I'd advised her, she should have just stuck a fork in her thigh and just gone out. The first thing she should have said is, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that this site would cause so much havoc and so much controversy.
No, but hang on.
She was there for scalps.
But look, everyone is missing the point because no one talked about it. The reason we made videos first was because her site was still up. We were trying to get her to take it down. She didn't. After my second video or third, she finally took it down. And then that was the end. Like, everyone was like, all right, cool. Then she made her Facebook a video accusing about like CIA, deep web, Richard Spencer, paid all of us. And then we just making fun of it. That was more of an entertainment. And
Andy,
Andy,
you gotta share some of that Democratic National Committee and CIA money with us. The one that got paid.
Well, why didn't he have on Paul Joseph Watson? He had the goods on it.
Yeah, who knows? No, Paul Joseph Watson had no idea what was happening with the whole situation because
I think he did.
He knew.
Yeah,
he knew.
Well, okay. At least
he was probably too busy not researching his videos.
Well, his first tweet, he definitely wasn't, because he was like, she made that website 4 years ago. What are you all talking about? And then I'm trying to yell out, it's because the site is still up. When they took a fucking site down, I was happy. Obviously, some people, because she was in the spotlight, were accusing her of being a fake conservative or an SJW in disguise or some bullshit, which I never went with because I'm like, all right, that's just accusing her with no evidence. Therefore, she'll use it as ammo to divert the actual fucking point, which she did, because in Ruben, everyone fucking diverted the actual point. Stupid.
No, it was.
So wait, Dave Rubin lost control of his own show. I didn't
completely. He was overwhelmed. And I'll tell you one thing right now: Blaire White completely proved her bona fides as a woman, as far as I'm concerned, because that performance was for the ages.
Yeah, she converted to a woman up to having the emotions of a woman.
It was like I have not seen a cat fight like that since junior high. I swear to God, that was a thing of beauty.
Yeah,
I mean
that
was like the Foreman Ali fight, of cat fights, as far as I'm concerned. It was up there with the Rumble in the Jungle. I'll tell you right now, that was fucking funny as fuck. That was just beautiful. But
I was laughing. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is,
Candace,
what's interesting is that the only person who's embracing Candace Owens at this point is Cernovich. And by the way, Cernovich went out there and really hugged her. You know, I mean, he put up some Twitter thing, some Twitter stream video, and he went on and on and on that we need like tough women like Candace Owens. And she doesn't have to be perfect; she just has to be tough, because you can teach being polite, but you can't teach toughness and guts, right? Which was very gung ho of Cernovich.
I'm fine with her continuing her career and doing what she's doing. Like, at no point was anyone who was making the videos about what the whole situation was saying we should all unsubscribe and throw her off YouTube. No, it's just, hey, you fucked up, say sorry, erase the website. No one cares. And if you don't want to erase the website, that's fine too. I mean, I'll make fun of you, but that's about it. But no one was like, let's fucking burn her to the ground. Like, at no point. No, at fucking no point. I don't give a fuck if people want to stay subscribed to her to hear all her other stuff. That's fine. I have friends who I fucking disagree with like a bunch of shit on their stuff. I'm not going to be like, everyone go unsubscribe. No, I don't care. Hey, Candace, you were in the spotlight. You had a website up. You erased it. Now fuck off. Or talk to us. I don't care. Either or. Stupid.
What do you guys think is going to happen to her, by the way?
I think she'll be fine. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
Like she lost a bunch of subscribers. Look at Social Blade, but that's gonna turn over in a couple days, so it doesn't even matter.
It's weird that the way YouTube works on some level is that, yeah, I think she'll be fine. I think she have like she must have an agent who got that shit all set up for her to be on InfoWars and Fox News and all that crap.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how the fuck that works. I'm not on that
Actually,
line.
My agent contacted her a few days before that fucking a stream, and then my agent called me back, or Chris back actually, and was like, yeah, her agent says she hates you, so no.
Oh, that's good to know.
And then she didn't even watch my videos. She claimed on Ruben, and I'm like, then why do you hate me? I was perfectly nice in my videos to you. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, I think the whole issue has been very convoluted and weird. I think Blaire did the best she could under the circumstances. With the Dave Rubin thing.
Candace Owens started out, I mean, you didn't see it. Candace Owens started out questioning Blaire White's femininity and calling her, what did he call her? What did she call her? What did Candace
like,
Owens
I'm not going to use your pronouns. I'm not going to use your pronouns because you're a grown man.
Oh, right. And
no, I didn't even watch. I didn't watch it. Candace Owens,
right off the bat, it was just fucking funny.
Okay, I would say this. Because I've said this before. If you're a trans person, me using your preferred pronoun does require a little bit of respect. However, if you pass, as Blaire does, I would never, if I saw Blaire White on the street and I had no fucking clue who she was, I would be like, that's a woman. Just, I'm sorry. Somebody like Riley Dennis, I'm a little bit like, you're a piece of shit, so I'm a little bit up in the air on whether or not I respect you enough to use that kind of nicety towards you.
Sure.
But that's, to come out onto Dave Rubin's show and immediately say, I'm not going to use your pronoun, that's fucked.
You know what her reason was? She goes, because I have a conservative audience watching, and I want them to know that like what you actually are. So basically she's doing this for show. It's like, my conservative audience is watching, therefore I'm going to react how I believe they want me to react, rather than just be fucking straight with you. And look, if she wants to say that, like, that's fine. That's just like a little jab. I didn't even put that in my video. I was like, I'm not gonna even talk about that because she's just rude. She's just being rude. Yeah, generally being rude. And but we all know Blaire is biologically a male, and like you said, Aiden, it's more about a respect thing, saying she. That's about it, right? I mean, and if you're passable, I suppose.
Right. Because if I look at you and you look like a man, it's not even necessarily about me being rude or not. It's just that if I didn't know you, I wouldn't know what pronoun to use. Now, if you're also an asshole and a piece of shit like Riley Dennis, or ContraPoints is at many times, I would probably use your biological gender just because you haven't shown me any respect, so I'm not going to show you respect back. That's my standpoint on that. If you're a real, like, if you're somebody like, yeah, Riley Dennis, who's like, if you don't fuck me, then you're I don't know, whatever. You're a horrible person. You're a trans. Fuck you. Fuck you. No, fuck off, and fuck your entire shit.
What I just say to that is, if you think me not fucking a trans person is transphobic, and that's relative to you, then yes, I am transphobic in this situation.
I just realized I was
a dick. Thank you.
I just realized we were not supposed to curse too much on the stream. I'm so sorry. I just dropped a whole ton of bad words. I'm sorry.
Oh man! God damn, you fucking people! Can't you do like a few fucking simple rules? God,
just for fuck's sake, guys! Fucking PG rules. You stupid cunts.
All right, come on, Marisha. Let's tone it down here.
All right, mate.
But no, I think it's if you respect me, I'll respect you back 100 times over. It just has to be mutual.
Is there anyone here who thinks opposite?
Who thinks what?
Like, who's like, no, I'd still color him, man. I don't give a fuck.
Me in the right circumstances, because I personally view transsexuality as a mental disease, and that's what it is as far as I'm concerned. It's a treatable mental disease. It's a treatable.
It's not treatable. It's not treatable. In what way?
Pimozide has been shown to be very effective in treating it. Pimozide is a compound used to treat Tourette's syndrome and other mental disorders. And it was shown in 1996 with studies that, and I can cite them for you and send you a link to it.
Sure. Oh, please do. No, I don't doubt you. I don't doubt you at all. I would actually. You know me.
Would be interested. Yeah. No, you're a nerd to the data, and that's perfectly fine. It showed promise in the treatment of transsexuality. I'm putting it both in the chat right now. There it goes to you. That's NIH.
Please send it to my Twitter, because I can't read anything on the chat.
Yeah. Let me do that. But before I do that, I'm going to put it in the chat for the people listening in, so that they all know where I'm coming from. But the thing is, I can't seem to find where I have the stupid chat thing. Anyway, my point. See, like, Todd, why don't you put that link into the chat so that the audience can see
sure.
that link. And let me go to Twitter while I'm talking to you, Aiden. See, it was proven that this chemical, it was shown, it was very promising, that 2 milligrams per day of Pimozide would be enough to have people who had ideations of being of the opposite sex would have those ideations go into remission, and that and for over a year. And it was proven to be a likely effective treatment of transsexuality. It's certainly cheaper than just going through the whole hormone replacement and
well, it's not. It doesn't have. It doesn't have very positive outcomes as it is. They're
what?
very.
No.
The suicide rates currently aren't mitigated or ameliorated very much.
Exactly, but with Pimozide, these ideations at 2 milligrams per day were eliminated. And so there was no more studies in that direction. And one of the dirty little secrets, which I know that you, Aiden, can confirm to both the other members of the stream and to our audience, is that, see, in medicine, unfortunately, a lot of it is politicized, and a lot of investigation is not carried out because it is not politically correct, because it goes into conclusions that people don't want to see. For instance, women who have had children have breastfed have a far lower incidence of breast cancer than women who have not. And
yes.
And this is true, but a lot of studies in that direction to understand why have not been carried forth because of the political air. That is simply, it is counter to the feminist narrative, right? And it is obvious.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Well, John.
I do not know much about the data that you're talking about and the medication, but I do know that the way we handle transsexualism is ridiculous in our society. It's very ideological. We tend to think, oh, there's only one way. It's that they're born this way and we have to respect them.
Yeah,
and so everything is built around the idea that this is unchangeable and everything else seems to be changeable. It's like, I think we have a medication to do whatever we want with whatever piece of your body you have, except transsexualism. That's something we cannot ever change. And that's
and homosexuality, though they tend to be lumped into the same category of transsexual or transgenderism and homosexuality as being immutable. However, there is a problem with the transgender community in that, unlike the homosexual community, although homosexuals do tend to have a slightly higher, I believe, suicide rate, it is nowhere near the transgender suicide rate, which is so disturbing and absolute evidence. If it was any other disorder, this would be highly investigated to find a medication to treat it. But instead, when we try to find medications to treat transgenderism, it's viewed as discriminatory.
Yeah, and to go back to what Andy was saying, you see, from my point of view, Andy, since there is a possibility to fix this mental disorder, because that's what it has always been considered to be, a mental disorder. It's only in the last couple of years that it's become this quote-unquote civil right. Well, the thing is, see, from my point of view, it is indulging in the fantasies of crazy people. Imagine I were schizophrenic. Imagine I said to you, Andy, I'm Santa Claus, and from here on out, you got to call me Santa Claus. Well, what you would say? Well, to my face, maybe you'd say, "Well, yeah, sure, Coach, I'll call you Santa Claus." But once I'm away, you'd say, "Poor Coach, he's delusional. He thinks that he's Santa Claus." And well, yeah, out of politeness, I don't want to, rock his boat too much. Poor guy, I call him Santa to his face, but he's nuts, and he's got a mental disorder.
And look, I totally see what you're saying there, and I agree with you with the mental illness thing 100%. And if this Pimozide does actually treat, and there is medication out there, and there are people, so 100%, I'll buy that for sure. But I guess why we say she or whatever, even though it might be indulging in this like mental illness or whatever, is because they've made that effort to transition.
Right.
It's more, I'll be honest, it's definitely more of an emotion thing. It's not a fact thing, 100%. Like, anyone who's going to be like, no, they are actually women, they were born with women brains, I'll be like, fuck off. Like, that's stupid. But
well, their brains, Andy, actually, like, you can look at certain parts of the trans brain that lights up more similarly to a woman than to a man in some of the data, at least that I've looked at. But the problem is that this is abnormal. It would be the same thing of, like, parts. So I have bipolar disorder. I don't lie about this. I'm very open about it. Parts of my brain light up when they're not supposed to, and in that it causes problems. So we should be looking at ways to fix the problem in terms of how the brain works, rather than potentially changing the body when we cannot make men women and vice versa. Your genetic structure will always be that, right? I mean, you know that. I know you know, but like,
yeah. But like, I guess, yeah, like it's a double-edged sword where, I want to be respectful to my friends like Blaire or Thyron or whatever. And
I think it's respect.
It's more respecting. But then the other side to it is, if we do keep, pushing this trans thing to everyone, more people become trans instead of being treated, and the suicide rate is horrific and depression rate is horrific. And that's the other side to it. So I'm sort of at this, yeah, I'll be respectful for sure. But if like this whole kid thing and pushing them to be trans is fucking sickening and disgusting. When someone hits 18, you're an adult. If you want to, do that to your body and you'll go all that way. Sure, I don't see it as a very positive thing in the long run because of suicide rates or whatever. And also you're fucking with your body. But if in the end it helps you, that's totally cool. But yeah, so I'm on both sides of the fence, it sounds like, but I'm going to be still respectful, even though I know it may be bad.
You have to earn my respect. To me, you have to earn my respect. If you're a piece of shit and you're an asshole, I won't. Because I do think it's a bit indulgent. I do think it's a bit indulgent. Sorry, Coach.
And there's also the regret thing. Like a lot of people will transition and then regret doing it. And
you're not allowed to talk about that. You know, you're not allowed to give the real data on that.
Yeah, there was that bloke on Stephen Crowder a while back who was going on about. I think he transitioned 3 times or something, and then he ended up just setting up a charity. I think it was something like helping trans people actually seek treatment rather than going through with anything that's a little bit too rash.
Yeah, I mean,
it just wind up. No, forget it. It
just goes back to this idea that people always understand themselves and always know what they want and should just kind of be taken at their word instead of being given some other kind of help.
Yeah.
But we don't have much, and maybe Coach is right that we need to investigate this medication board, because right now we don't really have any better way of treating them.
I mean, yeah, the thing about the Pimozide thing is that this was a case study with one person back in the 90s. And although
fuck that.
Yeah, it worked with that one person, but it should certainly be studied more to see if this would actually be a viable treatment for a wider range of people.
Because that's the problem, because it's not politically correct, because it's just like the breast cancer thing. They don't want to study it because they don't want to find the truth, because the truth goes against their ideology. That's the problem.
And look,
I have one study I'd like to see. I'd like to see what happens if you pressure them into not being transsexual. Is it so dramatic? Like we could actually compare the pressure that we've been putting on these people for 400 years and the actual sex transition. And it may be that the social pressure toward adopting your gender that you were assigned at birth might actually be better than allowing sex change. But I know that this will not be a study that it will never be done.
You know why we can't do it. It's unethical. We can't.
Yeah,
it would never get through IRB. It would. I know, but you're right. You're right. Like if this was 1960, we would be able to conduct that study. We can't conduct it now, and we'll never be able to.
Yeah.
So, well, it's a wash.
So, this is an example of a contrary thing than what we've been talking, because we've been talking about facts invading our morals and facts being used to draw up our moral preferences. This is an instance in which our moral preferences, and especially the left moral preferences, are invading our search for facts. And so there's also these things in societies where we don't want to know, just like Coach Redpit is saying, we don't want to know the truth. And so we're arranging the very way we ask the universe questions so that we don't end up finding the facts we don't want to see.
You know, this is the problems of rich societies, by the way. Because it's only because we're a rich society that we can give ourselves the luxury of sticking our heads in the sand and ignoring reality. In a poor society, you can't do that. In a poor society, you have to face the reality, however unpleasant, because in a poor society or a society where there are limited resources, you can't afford self-deception. It's like you only see these enormous fat people in rich countries, not poor ones. Poor ones, there isn't enough food to go around. Okay, this kind of level of self-deception, insofar as transsexuals are concerned. And like, look, I know that this issue of me talking about transsexuality is going to come back to haunt me, because at some point in the future, you know, my path is going to cross with Blaire White. I have nothing but respect for the woman or man or whatever she wants to claim to be. Right? I cannot accept the fact that it is normal. What is occurring to her is not a normal thing, and I think that as a society we should not be indulging in this kind of indulging people in people's self-deception. I think it's just not.
What would be a good a way to execute that idea? Like what are we talking about? Just like the protesters, the LGBTQ, like those things, like sort of, you know, stop helping them spread their message?
Yeah, basically.
That's a very good question. Personally, I go at it from the perspective of liberty.
Okay.
Let's let people speak against this if they don't agree with it. Let parents say, I'm disappointed by my child being a transsexual or being an homosexual. Let the other side have a legitimate opinion, and that would be a first start. But I don't have an ultimate solution.
Mm-hmm. I think that we should say, look, what is happening is that we have lost a moral self-confidence. And this would tie back with what Todd is always talking about insofar as a religion is concerned. The fact that we have killed God and that we are no longer a religious people, I'm referring to us people who live in the Western democracies. Because of this, we have lost our moral self-confidence, because one of the things that people forget is that if you are a member of a church or a active participant in any kind of religion, that religion will teach you this is good and this is bad. Over there are the good guys and over there are the bad guys. There's Satan and there's the angels, right? And this gives you a moral self-confidence to figure out and realize this is good and this is bad. But what happens today is that since we don't have that moral self-confidence anymore, what goes on happening is that we are afraid of saying this is good and this is bad. We wind up saying, well, if you feel it's okay for you, then who am I to judge? Who am I to say anything? And so that is how we have fallen into this trap of people who are obviously have obvious mental problems, have a mental disease, a mental disorder, and we indulge in their fantasy because we don't have the moral self-confidence of saying, no, no, no. You are not a woman. You are a person suffering from a mental disorder, and we will try to help you as best we can. You see, that's what's going on. Instead, we let this lactatia. I mean, you yourself.
Okay, that's just child abuse. That's different. That's child abuse. Yeah. That's outside of this.
Okay.
That is totally outside of this.
You see my point.
He's dancing for adults, and he's fucking, what was it, like 6 or something, 8?
He's 7, 8.
It's disgusting.
He's been groomed to be a catamite. It's a horrifying thing. But okay, let's leave that aside for the time being. Let's talk about adult people who are suffering this. This is a mental disorder, and we have to have the moral self-confidence to say, no, I'm not going to indulge in your insanity. You have a mental disorder. Help you to treat it any way we can, but I'm not going to participate in your craziness.
Wait, what if, well, let's use the example, not lactation. Let's use Blaire White as the example here. Blaire White, I think she's like, what, 23 or 24 or something? Adult, everything transitioned. She's like very happy with like what happened. Like, should we, with her, even her being a success of this mental illness, says, oh, sorry, just because I don't want to perpetuate
she's actually somebody that we know, or I have never spoken with her or him or however.
Okay, but let's just say someone like Blaire, same age.
Caitlyn Jenner.
Successful.
That's an easy example.
Okay.
Sure,
yeah, sure.
The guy is nuts. Okay.
See, again,
I don't agree.
Jenner, like I wouldn't really compare to Blaire. I don't
want to talk about Blaire because this is a person that we actually know.
Well, okay, I'm saying someone who,
and so there are a lot of personal emotions that are going to be involved.
Someone, a male to female trans person who is 24, doing very well, is in a relationship that's very successful, and like has a nice job. Let's just say that person wouldn't. All right, like. For example.
Here's my answer to Andy. Here's my answer and what I would say to that person. I would say, first, be conscious that the positiveness that first, I'm happy that you're happy. So, I mean, I'm a libertarian. You did whatever you wanted with your body, and ultimately, I will not send the police to your home to stop you from doing it. But let's be conscious of what you do when you appear on the public space, because the lifestyle that went well for you may not go well statistically for 1,000 other people that are listening to you. That's the first thing. The second thing is to underline that if you went through the whole process, you've hacked into your genitals and you made them non-functionally reproductive, and you're not going to have babies. So maybe you enjoyed that at 25 years old. But I know a lot of people who turn out 38, 39, and they reach the point where they cannot have babies anymore, and they fully regret that. And so that's another point, which is you may be happy at 25, think about what you did to your organs in a way that is irreversible, and think about whether you want to be a satellite of diffusion for this ideology to convince other people to not have babies and to go into a mode where they will break a part of their body that was functional. You will break it forever and you don't get it back. And if you're happy with all this, fine, I'm good.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying, like, Blaire, I want to be respectful. I'll say she, but if Blaire was making videos trying to push trans stuff on kids or trying to change people's minds and be like, you have to be trans, you know, blah, blah, like, then I would
Riley Dennis. Like Riley Dennis, the mind fucker. Yeah,
right.
And I'd have a huge problem with Blaire if that was the case.
Yeah, but she doesn't. She doesn't at all. In fact, she does quite the opposite, which is why I respect what she does. Is to actually raise awareness to people. I mean, like maybe not to the extent or the degree that it need to be, because I know she hasn't had the bottom surgery, so she doesn't know about that personally from personal perspective. But I appreciate what she does in terms that she definitely advocates against children being put through this kind of bullshit, because it's fucking bullshit. That the idea of putting children through is horrific to me, and it should be to anybody. Yes. So I think that Blaire White is ultimately a force for good in the universe, and just her, you know, going out and being like, because if we don't have right now any better thing to do for her than to be like than to say this is the best way we can deal with your, you know, condition. If this was, I mean, because, you know, like, again, I have a mental disorder, so, like, you know, I have to take medication and stuff like that. That's the best I can do. They can't just, you know, cure it instantly. So if this is the best we can do, this is what we have.
And I guess the example for you would be if you started preaching the glories of bipolar disorder.
Oh yeah,
you're like, trust
so
me,
great.
Don't take the medication. It's fucking wild. It's, you know, like
better than acid, better than tripping.
Mr. Bones wide.
Exactly. It's the same thing. Yeah, you have to. You have to be honest about.
That's why we object to Riley Dennis, because Riley Dennis is pushing the agenda that everybody should be banging a transsexual, basically, and that anybody who doesn't is evil. Yeah, I know, and so yeah, but look. One of the big problems, and this, taking a step back and looking at it from a macro perspective, in the West, we have lost moral self-confidence, the ability to say this is wrong and this is right. We have fallen into this legalistic trap. Oh, it's not against the law, so it's okay. This is what Hillary Clinton always used to do, and still does, as a matter of fact. Oh, it wasn't against the law, so it's okay. You know, but no, just because something is not covered by the law doesn't mean it's okay. Doesn't mean that it's morally acceptable. But that's what we've fallen into as a society. We've fallen into a legalistic society, that what's on a statute or precedent from way back when is unacceptable. But what is beyond its purview is acceptable, no matter how horrifying it might be.
Okay? Excuse me, Coach. I got some stuff that I need to attend to soon.
Okay.
So maybe we could wrap this up, guys.
Yeah, this has been a really fun stream, but I gotta actually go get dinner because then I have to be on another stream. But
sounds good. Same here.
Everybody's got to go.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a stream in a bit as well.
Yeah, thanks for hosting this. It was fun. And,
thanks for coming on, guys, and thanks, Coach.
Yeah, it was proper banter, especially the chat.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, the chat, everyone. Andy, we should do some shit again at some point.
Oh, by the way, on Sunday, sorry, just so that you know, on Sunday I'm doing a 10,000 subscriber stream, and you're all cordially invited. And it's going to be just a free for all, and whoever shows up, shows up.
Well, I'll definitely be on, Coach. I'll be on.
I'd like to also have an extended discussion, maybe even on my channel, because I've bashed the alt-right before because of the reasons that I said on part one. But I've seen a new perspective, and I'd like to extend the conversation. So soon times I'll send out like a DM to all of you and see what's up.
All right.
Sounds great.
Sounds great.
You better be careful there, Andy. Jeff is going to come after you. He's going to get.
Look. I'll have some disagreements with people, but I'm my own person, and if someone's going to be angry for having any one of you on, that's because even some people were like, Andy's will be in trouble for being on this stream. If someone if I'm in trouble, then fuck off. I don't care.
Yeah, nobody. I mean, well, I, unless you come out of here like wearing full Hugo Boss shit, which is of course what people say you're gonna do when you talk to the alt-right. You're gonna come out of here. You're gonna have him goose stepping out of this stream right down the street.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have a Jeff Hardy practice. Hardy is gonna come out at Andy for inviting me because I invited someone else on my stream. So we're gonna have a fractal of guilt by associations.
I was gonna say thanks, Coach, for setting this up.
How could we get
going?
on your stream?
Thanks, everybody.
See you later, guys. Bye bye.
Take care.
Bye bye.
All right, everyone.